So go ahead and put where you're tuning in from in the comments so I know I am officially live. If this is your first time joining me, welcome. I am Tegan Bartos, founder and managing director of Jolt Your Career, and I help ambitious professionals just like you advance, own, or pivot in your career. I always like to start off my lives as we're waiting for people to join in with celebrating some client wins or friends wins or whatever it may be. And so I want to give kudos to all 48 participants on my 5-day do-it-yourself resume writing challenge. As a resume writer, I can personally attest to how difficult it is to write your own resume. It's so hard to read the label when you're inside the jar. So kudos to all of you for stepping up to the plate and learning how to advocate for yourself and sell yourself and really go and crush your goals. Speaking of which, today I am bringing on an incredible guest, one of my favorite people to collaborate with. So Bob McIntosh is here from Mass Hire Career Center. It's a one-stop center. And for those of you who do not know what those are, I'm going to bring him on right away to explain it. Hey, Bob.
Hey, how are you doing, Tegan?
I am so excited to have you on today. Thank you so
Oh,
much
thank
for
you.
joining me.
Thanks for having me on, and thanks for everyone who's joined. A lot of people joined, so I can't remember the names, but Dan and Kenneth and oh, well, that's about it. Okay.
Let's see. This chat overlay, I don't know how to get the comments to display. It says it's supposed to, but then
Mm-hmm.
I don't see any, but like over to the right, I see a ton. So I don't know, I'll take it off. But yeah, absolutely. So, Bob, what
Mm-hmm.
exactly is a one-stop center for those of people tuning in who have never heard of them before? And
Well,
we both
one,
worked at them, or well, I used to work at one and you work at one
I
now.
didn't know that. Okay, good. Yeah, so One Stop Career Center is nationwide. Every state has one, and they provide a variety of services. They're free to the public. And they offer services such as career advice, training, veteran services, disability services, and then what we formerly knew as welfare, people who are on welfare. So it's really a great system for people, for I would say the small man who can't afford, say, expensive career counseling.
Yeah, absolutely. So
Hmm.
I worked with one of the agencies for Chicago Cook Workforce,
Okay.
and it was a fantastic program. I absolutely loved everything about it. My
Hmm.
team was incredible, and being able to go inside these organizations, because I worked on the RIFs, being able
Okay.
to go inside these organizations and seeing how executive leaders make decisions and what they're legally required to
Hmm.
do for their
Right.
employees when they do
Right.
mass layoffs. It was definitely an eye-opening experience. And one of the grants that I was managing at one point was
Mhm.
AARP Back to Work 50 Plus, which is ironic enough. Do you have
Okay.
that at your center?
Not specifically ARP, but we do. I would say that the majority of our clients are 50 and over.
Yeah.
Um, I think I recall 53 as the average age, who continue to use our services. Yes.
I was doing a little research before this training and I've got it noted over here.
Hmm.
So ADO law only protects people that are over the age of 40, which is crazy because as an
Yeah.
80s baby millennial, I'm like, oh, okay. I
Yeah.
just, anyways, moving on. But some states actually have state specific laws that protect younger workers as well.
Oh,
And some of the stats I found is that 60% of older workers have seen or experienced workplace age discrimination. 90 to 95% say it's common, depending on what survey you're looking at, whether that
hmm.
be AARP or Statica. 25% of employees aged 45 and older have been subject to negative age comments. I was at a networking event a couple weeks ago, and they were all talking about like when I was going to start Botox, and I'm like, man, like, gosh, and
Yeah.
it
Right.
just kind of puts it into perspective of all of those nasty things that happen in the workforce because it was very much so a work related event. But to your point, let's go ahead and welcome some
Okay.
people. Hey, Richard and Dan
Right,
and
Dan.
Kenneth.
All right, Ken.
Yeah, Tanya.
Yeah.
Uh, my massage therapist, Maureen. Anybody that's
Okay.
in the Chicago North Shore, you definitely want to go see her. Nyatu, what's up? I need to connect with
Yeah, too. All
you.
right. Yep.
Um, Monica, hello, hello, hello. Lisa, we've got Trevor, and the list just keeps going on and
Excellent.
on.
Great. Great.
Marty, there's too many people to
Oh,
say
Marty.
hello
All
to.
right.
So to
Good to see you.
everyone, hello, and let's go ahead and get this party started. So for
I
those of
do want
you,
to say that Niatu and Ken appeared as a guest speaker for me. So I'm sitting on the other end, but I'm grateful for the guest speakers that talk to my clients, free of charge.
yeah, anytime you want to
Yeah.
volunteer, count me in. And for
Really?
anybody else
Okay.
that's coaches in
You're
the
on.
comments,
Yeah.
get in Bob's DMs to volunteer because
Hmm.
although I'm sure Bob is a fantastic facilitator, having someone else come in when you're working at a one stop is really exciting for the
Exactly.
participants.
Yep.
It mixes things up, and I'm sure Bob has some notes to catch up into his case management files and would love
Hmm.
it. So, okay. Bob, my question is for you. Everybody in the comments, feel free to share your opinion as well. Let's see if we put this chat overlay on and see if it actually works. If not, I'll turn it off. But, anyways, why do you think that ageism exists in hiring?
I think it exists mainly because there is a perception that younger and older workers aren't on on key with say the mid range, and and in a way for the stereotypes that exist, there is some truth to those stereotypes, and I think it's basically that older workers and younger workers, mid range workers, just aren't getting along. They don't see things the same way, which is wrong, because there's a great benefit to hiring younger workers and older workers, for various reasons. So why it exists, I can't really put a finger on it, but it's unfortunate. It really is.
I wore this jacket today because it says, be a kind human. And
Hmm.
I think why a lot of this evolved is because people are jerks. And
Hmm.
um, it's easier to have a dog eat dog culture than it is to embrace those different from you. And although
Hmm.
diversity is typically talked about in other ways, age diversities, to your point, Bob, is incredibly valuable to an organization to
Absolutely.
have at times leaders who have been through it all
Hmm.
and can help you weather storms and have fresher faces who might have some more innovative
Absolutely.
ideas. And that doesn't take away from the people who have weathered storms lacking innovation either. So it's really an interesting concept. And so
Yeah.
um, a couple
Well, I do
people
want to say that
say,
one person wrote in the chat area that employers don't want to pay as much for talent, so as a mature or older worker would demand, and to some point, it's true. Older workers demand a higher salary, but what employers are finding is that if they hire people at a lower salary, younger workers who don't have as much experience, then the work isn't getting done as well as it should be. I like to say that older workers, when they do something the first time, they do it right, most of the time. But it's because we've learned as we've worked, we've learned from our mistakes, and we try not to repeat them. So.
yeah, absolutely. I think pay is definitely one of the things that
Hmm.
employers are considering. When so there's always one client, and I just absolutely adore her. I worked with her about 10 years ago.
Hmm.
She's still not retired, even though Sears forced her into retirement.
Hmm.
And she had led such massive teams and just constantly butted heads trying to get certain things done, that when she was ready, when she was forced into retirement, it was either you can take early retirement or you can be gone with nothing type of situation.
Yeah.
And she continued on working, but wanted to do so in a lesser capacity. She
Mhm.
wanted to be an individual contributor instead of a people
Sure.
leader, because she wanted to be doing the work that she had been so far
Right.
removed from. And it was a challenge for her during her job search, because employers kept saying, hey, I can't pay you what you were making before. She said, I don't need to be making what I was making before. I just want to keep using my brain. And
Hmm.
so
Hmm.
I think that when job seekers have the confidence and are staying true to themselves and can make other people believe that that is actually the case, that, hey, I'm willing to take such a significant pay cut, not because I'm desperate for a job, just because I'm ready for a change in this time of my life.
Sure.
It reduces the hiring team's anxiety about, well, this is just a filler job until they get the job that they really want, and then they're going to be gone and we're going to be starting from scratch again.
Yeah. And that is a concern of employers, is they're afraid that if they hire someone who's already been there and done that, then they're going to get bored with the responsibilities and leave.
Yeah.
But there are people who just want to take a step back, and I understand that. They want to be an individual contributor, whereas before they were a manager. If that's the case for mature workers, then they need to be very compelling in how they explain it to employers in interviews. So
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely agree. So I would love to hear everybody's perspective, but especially yours, Bob, on how do you find age diverse cultures? One of the things that I somehow found my way into is startups.
Hmm.
And a lot of times these startups are, I mean, some of these startups are, they haven't even been to college. The 20-year
Right.
olds who are having these $1 million companies, and you don't see anybody outside of their 20s working there. And so, or sometimes you see organizations where you only see mature white men there. And so how do you find a company that values age diversity and other forms of diversity to really know, is it worth my time applying there? Is it worth my time going in every day and fighting this age discrimination battle that I may
Right.
face? So what are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, and for the people out there who are unemployed and looking for work, they're not going to like what I'm going to say, but it is in a way to find the kind of organization that is age friendly. It's going to take some networking, and you should have an understanding of your industry, and what the age group usually consists of in your industry. But if not sure, then you can network. You can find people via LinkedIn, reach out to them, ask if you could have a conversation with them. Or if you're one of those people persons like you, then you could approach people at the company, call them. Getting their contact information might be a little challenging, but I would say that once you start networking, or once you start spreading the word, then you can find people who work at the companies who'd be willing to talk about the company culture. And if someone were to ask me, what's culture where I work, I would say that it is primarily older workers, and it's a very professional. It's not too strict. It is strict, but it's a very professional environment where older workers are primarily the ones. So,
We got a really interesting question here.
mhm.
So, do you think someone over a certain age should retrain because it's a fact society is changing?
I think if they have the ability to learn from the training, and I think if they've had some past experience. So let's say for a project manager, someone who has a lot of experience in project management, is around their 50s, and they only need a PMP to make themselves more marketable, then I think that is a good option. I've got to say though that in terms of training, you may need to understand, you may need to learn Scrum or Lean Six Sigma, but if you haven't really practiced it in the past, then it's going to be hard to put it into action when you land your job. So, when you get hired.
I think that one of the things that, so like my grandma, for
Mhm.
example, she was tech whiz. Me, not so much. I know how to unplug stuff and plug it back in and pray it works.
Right.
Where like my mother-in-law, she can barely work a smartphone. She's in VA leadership, and she's the most tech savvy person there. And so one of the things that I love about the One Stop was they have different technical trainings that you can
Sure.
go.
Yeah.
I mean, I probably retook the Excel workshop 4 or 5 times because
Mhm.
they've got, basic, intermediate, and advanced. And if you're not using it every day, it's easy to lose it. And
Right.
so even little things like that, with maybe it's been a while since you worked on a certain type of system, or it wasn't exactly your focus in your previous job, it's nice to upskill. Look at
Mhm.
anybody in tech, for example. Tech changes every 18 months. There's a reason
Absolutely.
why you see tech people with 1,000 different certifications next to their name, because technology quickly becomes obsolete and you have to learn the new one. And if nobody's using the new one yet because nobody's ever had it, you quickly learn from the manufacturer, get the certification that you know how to use it, and then can go out and do it. And
Mhm.
so I think I think, to your point, there's foundational things that you want to stay up on, and then more
Sure.
advanced things that you can even do as well.
Mhm.
So, one must be aware of statements like difficult to work with because they're older. This is ageism. Glad you saw
Mhm.
that. Oh yeah, there's so many microaggressions, of comments like that. That's such a tall tale sign that ageism does exist. And I think a lot of people like to say, "Oh no, that's not happening in our organization." But when you hear little comments like, "Oh, they're difficult because they're older," or, "Oh, you need to, consider getting Botox if you're going to stay in a sales focused
Right.
role," those are ageism comments.
Yeah, to Marty's point, that is a very dangerous comment, but that is, more in terms of a person's personality. I bet that person who was told they're difficult to work with because of their age was difficult to work with when they were younger. So I think it's based on the person's personality. I don't know many people who, as they've gotten older, have gotten crankier and more difficult to work with. So, you know, you will find me very easy to work with, and you will also find me to be somewhat foolish at times. So, it's a personality thing. It's not based on age, but it is a dangerous statement, and a stereotype that some employers might have.
Well, isn't that what people hire on anyways? Like for people who
Yeah.
are on the job
Mhm.
search, when it comes with them being EEO over the age of 40, they're high people hire people they know, like, and trust. And so,
Sure.
yeah, some fresh college grad who couldn't get the job that they really wanted, so they became a recruiter, because you can quickly make six figures, and
Mhm.
has no type of business acumen, and is going to be looking at you with your all black and white resume, and
Right.
they may think, "Oh, well, this person is stuck in the past." And so what are some of the ways that we can mitigate some of these age biases, because we don't know if we're going to have a recruiter like Jack Kelly,
Mhm.
who's been a staple recruiter throughout his career, or
Good Jack. Good old Jack.
somebody
Yeah.
who doesn't know much. And
Yeah.
so, from resume to interviewing to social media presence, what are some of the best ways for job seekers to mitigate age biases?
Well, I think first of all, it begins if you want to talk about the resume, I believe that's one thing we were going to talk about. And even though I really suggest strongly that my clients don't go beyond 10 or 15 years in their work history, they still do it. And that in itself is going to disqualify people, from employers who practice ageism. They're going to determine how old you are. Like, for instance, I was looking at your LinkedIn profile, and you had started working in earnest in 96, or rather,
Me?
I was able to pretty much determine how old you are based on when you started working.
Oh, like when I went to school and
Yeah, like
all of
when you
that.
went
Yeah,
to
I
school. So I
graduated during the
determined that
recession.
you
So,
graduated when you were 23. And then, so I figured, oh, you must be like 10 years older than my daughter. So, by including history that goes beyond the 10 or 15 years, then that really is hurting you in terms of being considered even for an interview. Um, and I said that even though I really stress to my job seekers that they don't do it, for that reason alone, there's another more important reason. But in any case, it starts with the resume. It could start, and then if the person is accepted for an interview, then the person needs to go in there with the right attitude. Uh, too many older workers that I come across start the conversation with me about how they feel they were let go because of their age. Well,
Yeah.
you know what? That's in the past. Now we're talking about the future where you really need to go into an interview or a networking event with a positive attitude, with excitement, with enthusiasm. And don't start every statement with how many years of experience you've had, because really, in fact, years of experience, that may not be relevant. I mean, because you have 20 years of project management experience doesn't mean you're a great worker. So don't begin every statement, every summary statement, every networking conversation, every interview with your years of experience, because you want to really you want to use that time to talk more about your value. Um, so,
Absolutely.
so I think attitude plays a big role in it.
When I did the ARP grant, that was
Uh,
everybody started off with that. And I think it
Yeah.
was just a trend, right? Seasoned
Mhm.
professionals with 15 plus years of experience. And it used to be based on how many years of experience did you have. Even job descriptions will say 3+ years of experience, 10+ years of experience, or they won't
Mhm.
even consider you. And so I think that job seekers got trained by job descriptions, and at the end of the day, it is about the value that you bring. I've been showing dogs for 20 years. That
Mm,
doesn't make me the best dog handler.
absolutely.
The fact that I've had every single dog that I've had has become one of the top dogs in the country makes me one of the best handlers.
Well,
But
that's
also,
a much more valuable statement than your years of experience. 20 years of experience in handling dogs.
exactly, yeah, because I know people. I mean, just because. So from a recruiter's perspective, for everybody that's tuning in, there's three types of employees: A players, which are high performers, the ones companies will do anything to retain. They're the ones who get opportunities for extra little perks nobody else gets. Then there's B players, the majority of the workforce. You come in, you feel like you're doing above average work, but you're not really recognized for above average work. You're probably a little frustrated that you're not getting the recognition as some of the other people, be that actual your performance or corporate politics or whatever it may be. And then there's C players who come in, probably don't hit their KPIs, and probably aren't going to last very long. It's C players get the most attention and they're out quickly, high turnover. A players get the most attention. B players, you kind of like are the majority of us. And so when we are in the interview process, even if we are a B player, we have to try to make ourselves sound like an A player when it
Sure.
comes to these are the challenges I faced. These are how I exceeded my KPIs. And like on your resume, yeah, taking dates off past 15 years ago, maybe adding a little bit of color or a little bit
Mm,
more design
mhm.
elements like shading to show that have a more modern look. But then in the interviewing, something I thought was really interesting is how people choose to dress. And
Mhm.
so not everybody can go out and buy a new wardrobe. We know that.
No,
But for the people who can, one of the studies that we found is that when people wear more dated clothes to interviewing, they're less likely to get the job if they wear fresher clothes. So,
mhm.
Bob, what do you think about how people should dress if they're a mature worker to the interview?
Well, I mean, that all speaks to appearance, presentation rather. And so the way you dress is important, of course, but I think really most important is the enthusiasm you enter the room with. Um, and then also being able to speak about your value, about what you've accomplished. I mean, that statement alone of how you've won, most of your dogs, if not all your dogs, have won awards from your handling, that speaks volumes. So it's attitude, being able to sell yourself with your accomplishments, your greatness, and then really understanding that your age can be of benefit to an employer. Your age can be of benefit because you have vast job experience, you have vast life experience, you're dependable, you're a problem solver, and also, you're a leader and a mentor. So if
Yep.
you understand these points and you can really speak to them, then you should do well in the interview. And then the ageism sort of demystifies. It goes away.
Yeah, I agree. Like when interviewing, it's interesting. Well, the short period of time that I was an agency recruiter, and then with
Hmm.
a little bit of the private searches that I do now for the staffing agencies that I work for, the executive search firms that I work for, it's it's interesting how people present themselves in terms of how they drop subtle hints that they're with the latest trends and innovations, and speaking to how um, you've been a part of these digital transformations and rolling out this change management and quickly getting the teams up to speed on the technology, so that way the productivity and customer satisfaction doesn't take a hit, and all of that. It just says, okay, well, one of the biases is mature workers struggle with technology. Well,
Hmm.
if in your interview answers you're saying you're taking ownership of training everybody else on this new technology, you're making sure that it's rolled out properly, and being the one to source this new technology because you know that there's better way to do things, it takes all of those stereotypes and throws them out the window. So I want to make sure that we appreciate everybody's time and not go too much over. And so, Bob, what is your best tip for an early job seeker who is ambitious and, feels like they should be getting promoted, and maybe mature workers are saying, you need to wait a little bit longer. I will give you sponsorship. You just got to get X, Y, and Z underneath your belt. And should they stay and be continued to be mentored by someone they feel that they can trust, but feel a little frustrated that they're not advancing as quickly as they want to? Or should they leave and get that promotion someplace else and get those opportunities quicker than they otherwise would have?
I'm not quite sure I understand the question. Are you talking about older workers who are unhappy where they're working?
So like younger workers,
Oh,
younger
younger workers.
workers who
Hmm.
have mature mentors, right? And they're
Yep.
saying, hey, before you take this next leadership role, I don't want you to make the same mistakes I made. Get these couple of things underneath your belt, and then I will sponsor you. I will push you through this organization. Should
Yeah.
they stay, or should they say, forget you? You're just old and don't want, view me as competition. I'm going to go over to the
Right.
next company who'll give me the promotion right now.
No, I think you've answered that question absolutely. They should stay and get as much, wisdom from a mentor as possible, so that one, and I have to tell you, I had a mentor when I was younger, and I soon outgrew her in terms of the knowledge I obtained and the way I delivered workshops and so forth. So yeah, so get as much knowledge and wisdom from that mentor, whether it's your manager or another colleague, and then you know rely on that mentor to say, okay, now it's time for you to fly. Now it's time for you to go on to your next position, because a good mentor will always encourage his colleague or her colleague to look for other opportunities, you know.
I love that advice. And
Mm.
so for all,
I like the advice. I like how you brought it up, though. That's absolutely correct, you know.
well, it's so many. So a lot of the age discrimination comes into play from the younger generations saying,
Hmm.
well, these people are holding me back. And really, it's, well, sometimes wisdom will say you need to slow down a little bit before you crash and burn because you
Hmm.
may think you know everything, but you really don't. And so I love how you phrased it in that your mentor will want to see you shine and give you opportunities to
Absolutely.
shine. And as
A
long as
good
you're
mentor
still
will. Yeah.
Yes, as long as you're still learning from that person, then you have
Hmm.
something to gain from that person. And then when you see, okay, I've outgrown this person, then it's time to move on to maybe another mentor or another organization. And so, um, Marty says she's open to connect. See, doing little things like this. I
Yeah.
love this. This is a way to show that you are a career futurist by connecting with other people that you're engaging with in networking events and staying up to date on how to better collaborate with people. And so, Bob, before we end, what is
Well,
your
I
best?
just wanted to say that I've
Yeah.
never met with Marty either on the phone or in person. Of course, I think she's in Chicago, but she seems like she would be a really outstanding mentor. She seems like a very giving and caring person.
And
So
her chocolate chip
just wanted to
cookies
add that.
are amazing.
And her what? Chocolate?
Chocolate chip cookies are
Yeah.
amazing. No, Marty's really cool. If you're not following Marty, definitely follow her because
Yes.
her whole entire thing is a career futurist. And although she doesn't necessarily target mature workers,
Hmm.
it's something we all want to keep in mind. What is the future of work? Where is my place in the future of work? And how do I get organizations to see that? And so she's a huge advocate and really outspoken for that. And then obviously, oops, I'm not sure how that one comment off, but for
Oh, I
those
saw
of
that
you,
comment. I saw that comment. As much as I'm an advocate for mature workers, I've seen younger workers practice ageism or discriminate against, wait, older workers discriminate against younger workers. And that's just as much a crime as the reverse. So
yeah.
that is a great point. And older workers have to realize that younger workers add so much value, so much diversity to the work